Good Friday morning, everybody, and this is, as you can see, an on-the-road edition of our daily devotion. We're going to have a quick one here today, just because we're on the road, and I don't like to tarry too long when I'm doing this. So today we are starting the 24th chapter of Acts. We're going to look at the first 9 verses today, and if you remember, Paul has been spirited away to the governor Felix's home in Caesarea. He has been taken in the cover of darkness by a group of 470 men at first, and then of course the 200 of them peeled back, the ones on foot, and the horsemen rapidly took Paul all the way to the governor to protect him from those 40 plus folks that had pledged to assassinate Paul. So that's where we're at. A great deal of drama going on so far in this little event. So here we are, Paul before Felix at Caesarea. So let's begin. 5 days later, the high priest Ananias came down with some elders and an attorney, a certain Tertullus, and they reported their case against Paul to the governor. When Paul had been summoned, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, "Your Excellency, because of you we have long enjoyed peace, and reforms have been made for this people because of your foresight. We welcome this in every way and everywhere with utmost gratitude. But to detain you no further, I beg you to hear us briefly with your customary graciousness. We have in fact found this man a pestilent fellow, an agitator among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, and so we seized him. By examining him yourself, you will be able to learn from him concerning everything of which we accuse him." The Jews also joined in the charge by asserting that all this was true. Of course, the problem is that most of that is at best a stretch of the truth, and at worst a flat-out misrepresentation or lie. The whole thing is interesting, and it shows us that human character hasn't changed at all through the ages. Humans are prone to misrepresent facts to their own favor, and when necessary to fabricate stories, and that is what Tertullus is doing here. But the interesting thing is that they delay 5 days in coming to Felix to accuse Paul. They've been called to come. Paul got there in one night. Of course, he was using horses and all of that, but nonetheless, they took 5 days. It makes one wonder. This Tertullus, as been pointed out, that's a Greek name. So is he? He's an attorney. He's an advocate. He appears to be a James Cochran kind of fellow, a hired gun, as you will. He is a spokesman that they've brought in because of his way with his words and how persuasive he is in a courtroom type proceeding. Rather than Ananias being the one, the high priest, who really should have been the one to come and present the case, they brought in this ringer, as they say. He is a hired gun, as I said. So he starts right off by buttering Felix up, and you would hope that Felix could see through that, because what he's saying is factually incorrect. The Jews very much despised the Roman occupation. They certainly did not feel that they were welcomed, and they certainly were not gracious towards them, and they certainly had no gratitude about the Roman occupation. So all of that is a flat-out untruth. There's nothing true to that at all. But then he goes to detain you no longer. Here we'll talk to you briefly, and again he's very good with his manipulation of his wording. And then he calls Paul a pestilent fellow. Of course, that's where we get pestilence from. He's meaning that he's infecting the world with this dangerous thing. And of course, there is some truth there. Paul is spreading the word of the gospel. We understand that certainly is not an evil or bad thing. It's certainly not a pestilence. It is a message of grace. So he has totally turned that on its head, though the fact that it's spreading, that at least that part there's a semblance of truth in, but the rest of that is factually incorrect. And he calls Paul a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Of course, that's Jesus of Nazareth, is what he's talking about there. But that word ringleader means original leader, and Paul is certainly not the original leader. Paul is one of the people that is an evangelist for Christianity, but the original leader would be Christ, and the current leader would be James. Now, of course, the Catholics would argue it was Peter, but I think the Jerusalem Council and what we went through back where James is telling Paul what to do in the temple to go through the Nazarite ritual, it's obvious James is the ringleader. He is the one that's in charge, if you will. But the original, the originator of this sect, calling it a sect is true. It's a sect of Judaism, and it is the originator of the sect, of course, is Christ. He accuses him of trying to profane the temple, and that we know is not true. Paul was, in fact, trying to make right by under James' directive to go through that Nazarite ritual where he was in the temple, and he was almost done with that purification process when he was accosted and when all of this broke out, when the Asian Jews accused him of those things in the temple. So rather than him being an agitator, it's the Asian Jews that were certainly the agitators there. Paul was doing everything in his power to be contrite and to try to reconcile with the more Jewish Christians, at least. So everything here has been misrepresented at best, and at worst just a flat-out fabrication and lie. So it is an interesting bit of scripture in that we can see when we're confronted with people that are misrepresenting things about us, or misrepresenting things about Christianity, misrepresenting the world, or in fact flat out lying about us, we understand that it's nothing new. We understand that God will get us through it, just like he will get Paul through this. Though Paul does end up martyred, the whole thing ends up to the glory of God. So that's what we've got for you on this short devotion on the road. Gail and I are heading up to Sioux Falls to see our son, so it's a blessed day. You have a blessed day, and please be a blessing to someone today. We'll see you in the morning. Bye-bye.